Hello, curling fans, and welcome back to another edition of the Broom Brothers, the official podcast of the Grand Slam of Curling and the Curling Group. I am John, and am pleased to be joined by my Broom brother in crime. We were separated by an international border last week, but now we are back on the same side of the line. It's Robbie Doherty.
Yes, sir, John. It's great to see you again. Let me tell you something. I know that I'm now a podcaster, work on the broadcast sort of thing, but I just came off a competition playing international gold medalists, and I have my club provincials this weekend. So I'm kind of like a curler again. So I feel like I'm back in the groove.
You're back.
You know, my curling pants are a little tighter than they used to be. My leg is much more sore, but I feel like I'm so back. So I'm really excited to share my thoughts, my expert opinions here.
I love that. I mean, yeah, well, let's talk about it a little bit. You were at the House of Hearts in Duluth last weekend. For listeners who don't know, it's a charity bonspiel that directly supports Chris Plyce's family's charity, Project Joy. Joe Polo plays a huge hand in running that, as well as some of the other Duluth curlers there, and they bring celebrity skips in, and they must have been desperate this year because they gave Robbie Doherty a call. I've been before. It's been a few years since I've been back. I was supposed to join you in Duluth, and I got the call to commentate Women's Worlds, which was in my hometown of Calgary this week. So we're going to get to Women's Worlds, but tell me a little bit about your House of Hearts experience, because when I went, it was an extremely fun weekend of curling.
You know what? We were hot out of the gate, took a big win to start the event off. And then, as we say in the East Coast, the arse came out of her. Reality set in. And whether it's the free pours upstairs or not, something just didn't click. And but I felt like early on, John, I was throwing them like I was under 36 and under 200 pounds again. Like I felt really good. But
nice.
In all seriousness, though, what a great event. The Duluth Curling Club.
Really
what a cool place.
Yeah,
Duluth
great
is a
club.
I did zero research. I had no idea where I was going. I knew it was Minnesota, but no idea where in the state. Didn't know what it looked like. And just a great setup with the restaurants and everything right by the hotel right beside the curling club. You could walk there. The weather was great. And not to get too cheesy too early, but just to hear the story about Project Joy. And you know that I lost my mother as well to cancer in a 7-week battle 5 years ago. So I've been through that, and hearing the stories just about Chris and Choose Joy and what a great story about kind of his dad and how it all started and what great work they do for the community. And curlers showing up literally from all over the world. Like there was Norwegians there. I'm from PEI, and that's not much closer.
Oh yeah, that's a milk run from Charlotte down to Duluth.
Yes, it is.
Sure. Yeah.
But number on the check at the end of the week, $470,000 raised for Project Joy.
Yeah, I saw that there was a donor that gave $300,000 or something like that. Did I see that correctly?
Yeah. There was a gift left for $300,000, and it was pretty special to be a part of it. And I think just having kids of my own now, that it hit a little bit closer to home, but
for sure,
just a wonderful event, a great crew. So congratulations. With a lot of listeners down there, by the way, John.
Really?
I didn't think anyone would know who the hell I am, but
that's really nice.
A lot of remember when you said this? And I would smile. Oh, of course I do. But,
I do remember. Absolutely. Yeah. I remember a lot of that stuff.
But $1.5 million raised, just under 1.5 now throughout the entirety of the event. And it's an annual thing. If you have a chance, get down there, support the event. If you can't make it, check out Project Joy and all the great work they do.
Yeah.
In the region, a lot of great curlers in that curling club who we've gotten to know over the years just from traveling. And it's fun to see them kind of in their home environment and meet people, great staff there at the club. It was just, can't say enough positive things about the event. So thanks for having me. If you're listening, and hope to be back next year.
Yeah, it's I hope to be back next year as well. Just didn't work out this year, but yeah, it's a ton of fun. For people who don't know, they support schools and local programs with children to help end childhood hunger. They do a lot of breakfast and lunch programs in schools and stuff like that. And there's more information, projectjoynorthland.com. So yeah, check it out. Very fun event, great charity, great people involved. Glad you had a good time. I mean, I knew you would. No one goes to House of Hearts and says they had a bad time. But yeah, that's I'm glad it all worked out for you. And then yeah, as we said, I was here in Calgary. I was doing some commentating for World Curling and the Curling Channel for the Women's World Championships. So we're going to get to that in 1 second. Before we do, a reminder that this episode is brought to you by Goldline Curling. Robbie and I both have the duds on right now. As I've been reminding you the last few weeks, the end of season sale is on now. It goes to the end of March. So by the time you hear this episode, you're not going to have a lot of time to check it out. But pretty much everything is on sale on the website, from apparel to equipment, all that. They had some really cool stuff too, Robbie, at the World Women's. They've got a Brad Gushu bobblehead, which was very cool. They also have some really cool gear from the Brier, the Scotties, the Worlds. Lots of fun stuff to check out. And of course, all the Team Canada apparel from the Olympics as well. Robbie's got the crew neck sweater on right now with the logo on it, but also there's the official Canada jackets and jerseys, which I'll say this, Robbie, at the World Women's, and I was talking with Erin Flowers about this, great person who's worked for Goldline for a very long time. And she was saying that it's like the best jacket or like a team uniform has ever performed. And I believe it, because I saw tons of people around WinSport this week in Calgary wearing the like official Olympic gear. You know, people like to buy t-shirts, they like to buy crew necks, but you don't always see the curling jackets themselves get bought. And I saw tons of people walking around wearing them. So yeah, all of that is available at goldlinecurling.com. All right, Robbie. Well, obviously when you have a major championship, it makes sense to start at the top, but it makes even more sense in this case because perhaps it was a surprise winner of the 2026 World Women's Championship, Xenia Schwaller, defeating Silvana Tirinzoni at Swiss Nationals, and then makes good on her first Worlds opportunity, the first rookie skip to win a Women's World since Alina Petz in 2015. Yeah, they were dynamite all week. They lost their first game of the week to Satsuki Fujisawa, and then they won 13 in a row to capture their first ever World Women's Championship. Tell me your thoughts on Xenia Schwaller, her team, average age 22.5, hoisting the world trophy.
It's like a couple years younger than me. That's
Isn't that crazy?
No, it's impressive. But I'll tell you what, I think the way I was kind of telling my wife about it, and to me, it sounds like cheesy, but it was almost the perfect ending to this story that they were writing all year. It was like this team we saw come on the scene a couple years ago, extremely young, edit juniors, in a country kind of like Sweden, where you have your longtime name and Silvana Tirinzoni. They're not here this year. They get the call to go to Worlds. But this team, we saw them really start to consistently qualify, consistently beat teams who they, quote unquote, should beat or ahead of in the world rankings. And they've made it to the semis a couple times. Did they make a final this year, John? In the slam?
No, two semis.
Yeah,
they're semis and a quarters this year.
Right. And I thought they're just one of those teams, and we've talked about this specifically about them before, that are truly on the upswing. And we've mentioned on a few previous episodes how I think we are seeing a natural changing of the guard in the sport. And I really think the curling's on a trajectory where the average age of the top players is going to continue to get younger. Obviously, it has over the years. But if you look at their season, it makes sense that they won. And I know it's easy to sit here and say, well, Homan wasn't there, Hasselberg wasn't there, blah, blah, blah. There's going to be a lot of comments online about that, I'm sure. But the reality is, it was still a pretty damn tough field and a lot of great teams. And they just looked so strong. The round robin win against Canada, they were dialed in and got the job done in the semis, and boom, beat Canada in the finals in Canada. And big shout out to Calgary, by the way. It looked like great support.
Fantastic. It was fantastic. I couldn't, I was surprised. I tweeted this. But yeah, when you consider, like you said, the top three teams in the world who are all just on the Olympic podium were not there. And look, no disrespect to Kerri Einarson. Obviously, people love Kerri Einarson. But Rachel Homan is a slightly more bankable draw. I would say I don't think I'm, telling tales out of school here by saying that. You know, and that's, like I say, no shade on Kerri. That's just the fact of the matter is, I think, especially with Brad Gushue retiring, you and I have talked about it. I think Rachel Homan's going to be the new team, and it's already happening, where it doesn't matter where we are in Canada. That's who people are cheering for and who are buying tickets to see and everything. So yeah, when you consider that, it was amazing. Like, the attendance this week was unbelievable. The entire weekend was sold out. So the qualification games, the semifinals, the finals, even the bronze medal game was like 80% sold out. And then even during the week, like, obviously anytime Canada was playing, there were certainly more people in attendance, but I was even surprised. Like, I was there for draws that Canada was not playing, and it was over half full. And when you also consider that Calgary had the Scotties 2 years ago, they've had the Points Bet the last 2 years. I was a little nervous the attendance was going to be poor because of that. And Same. It was fantastic week.
Oh, I said the same thing. And Calgary is it's a big city, but it's very spread out.
Yes,
it's not kind of like some cities where you have your big core downtown.
Yeah, and Winsport is not downtown. Like, it's out. It's like out off the beaten track a little bit. Yeah,
very often. Well, hey, from PEI. No, but that's my point. Is not only did they support, but they made the effort to support, because it's a drive to get there every time. And so sorry, my point of that though is that you're playing a team like Canada, who's known for their attendance in the sport of curling. That's what do they call it in hockey? The seventh man. You're playing against the crowd too. And so Kerri would have had that advantage with the home country support. And for a team like Xenia, who's 23, that's a lot of pressure. It's just a lot of pressure to be the villain, if you will. Not that they're villains, but they're the away team. They're the visiting team. Let's call it what it is. And they just look dialed in. Xenia, I don't think I've ever seen a curler sliding out of the hack with the laser, like, focused look on her face. Like, of course, everyone's focused, but hers just is presented with that stone cold eyes, just dead on. And she just looked like a player you wouldn't want to be on the other side of the ice against. And the results came through on that. And she made some big shots in the semifinal. Big shout out, by the way, to Sam Moybrook. I was on the plane beside him, and me being 37 going on 79, my technology skills, I wasn't sure how to quite follow it, but he got on the World Curling, like the rock tracker.
Yep.
So he was kind of keeping me updated on what was happening. And they won it. They didn't get lucky. They were just, in my opinion, the strongest team. And Kerri,
they were for sure.
We'll get to Kerri in a second, but she faced some adversity all week too, with illness and stuff like that in the lineups. And I thought they looked good, but to me, there was one clear top team throughout the event. What I saw, and keep in mind, I did leave the country on Wednesday, but early
I was
on,
there. Yeah, I was there for a lot of the week. I watched a lot on TV when I wasn't there. They were definitely the best team. I mean, I tweeted it after the round robin concluded. I basically said, in my mind, the only question going into the playoffs was, would the moment overwhelm Team Switzerland? Yep. That was my, because they're young. So Fabian and Xenia are 23, and then the Selenas are both 22 still. So to me, that's the, like, would the moment get to them? It's their first Worlds. All of a sudden, the playoffs are different. I'd even talked, I'd been talking with John Epping throughout the week, their coach, and he even said the same thing, because I said at some point it was halfway through the week, and they were 7-1 or 8-1, like they were already going to make the playoffs. And I said to John, it seems like you got the girls rolling really well. And he said, yeah, well, we'll see what the playoff pressure does. Like, even he, as the coach, he wasn't quite sure. But I tweeted, I said, if they keep playing the way they've played in the round robin, they are going to be the world champions. I said that before the playoffs started. And then that is exactly what happened. They were just, I think, Robbie, you're right. Like, they've been such a fun team to follow, because you and I had talked about it on our show, that we kind of had noticed how good they were getting. We had Xenia on the show back in November. If you haven't listened to that interview, now is a great time to do it, because, Xenia says a ton of stuff that really pays off for them at the World Women's in regards to their training and how seriously they're taking curling and all of that stuff. It's a fabulous interview. I think people see Xenia on the ice and think that she is a very straight-laced person, but she's actually very laid back and quite funny off the ice. But she just, like you said, Robbie, gets in that killer instinct mode and looks a little scary. But But yeah, they to me, it was not only how good their play looked, but it was really the first time I had ever seen them look so calm.
Yep.
You know, you and I have both called a lot of their games in the slams over the years. Over the years, the last 2 years, basically, since they've been in slams regularly. And they had a tendency to get a little broom bangy and a little frustrated with each other and that kind of thing. And I don't know what it was, but it seemed like the world's calmed them. Like they were in a flow state. Vibes were high in the building. You could tell like nothing was shaking them. I was a media member, so I was seeing them after a lot of their games, you know, and they would have these impressive games. And Xenia, I would see her, you know, in the kind of locker room area of the arena and stuff where the media stuff is all set up. And every game, she was just like, yeah, I don't know. We're playing good. We're rolling good. Everything's good. Feel like she was just happy and they just seemed so comfortable. And God, that's a scary proposition for the rest of the world at this point.
Well, yeah. And this is going to sound different, but I'm literally echoing what you're saying. They didn't look any different. They looked like the team Xenia Schwaller that we see most times at the slam. Now they're obviously in the final, which we haven't seen, but they didn't look, I'm agreeing with you when I say they didn't let the pressure, the distractions, the moment get involved in their play. It was just another curling game. And I'll tell you what, hell of a pickup on the coaching bench in John Epping.
Big time.
John Epping he's played a long time. He's been, you know, obviously super successful, but just a good guy, in my opinion, for a team like them who are young. You know, they haven't seen that world stage on the women's side in Canada, sold out building. He would have just been a very great personality to have with you. Mm-hmm. Paige out of her brother's playbook, you know, you take Glenn Howard and now like the Ontario skip, we'll get John Epping. But
cousin.
I think
Yannick is her cousin.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant John Epping. Sorry.
No. No. You were just saying that Glenn was coaching her brother. Yannick is her cousin.
Yeah, sorry, cousin. Hey, PEI,
just didn't want you to get in trouble in Switzerland. You know?
PEI were all cousins, right?
Right. Yeah, good point. They're actual cousins, though.
Family. But my point is it was just it was a great. It's almost like that move. Now, whether someone helped them with it, kind of proved their experience in big games and, you know, how capable they are of making a game plan that works and sticking to it. To me, it was a dominating week. I don't want to say dominating because they're, you know, Kerri was 10-2, they were 11-1, but
they won 13
on the ice,
in a row.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So
big ups to them. Yeah, and to echo what you said too, the next few quads, they're going to be a force.
Well, and I see Bobae Kong coming in Korea. You know, she's just won back-to-back World Junior Championships. She's moving into the women's game full-time next year. Yep. Doesn't feel out of the realm of possibility, Robbie, that, you know, Xenia is 2 years removed from juniors. Doesn't feel out of the realm of possibility for me that Bobae Kong, could do something similar in a couple of years. Yep. And I think we could be seeing a lot of Kong and Schwaller at the top of the game. A lot of, you know, slam, big games at slams, big games at worlds. Yeah, there's some really good young teams coming there. Congratulations to them. What a victory. All right, let's talk a little bit about Kerri Einarson. And I'll put it to you, Robbie. I think there's, you know, you could go either way on this, but I'm going to put you on the spot with maybe a bit of a tough question here. But Kerri Einarson ends up with silver, as we know. She's been to 3 previous worlds, did not medal at one of them, won 2 bronzes at the others, now has a silver. Is the story this week that she couldn't get it done at another worlds, or is the story this week, you know, great week, got second place, ran into a better team in the final? What do you take away from Kerri winning the silver here?
Well, there's a lot of different avenues to answer that question. Because first of all, I think if you asked Kerri, because she's such a dialed in player, she eats, breathes, and sleeps curling. She devotes a lot of time to it. Obviously, I think she would have had her sights set on gold and gold only.
For sure.
Now, I think she should be damn proud of the silver, because I think there's still a lot of ignorance, especially in Canada, from the casual fans and from the general sports fans, that, you know, Canada's this dominating country, and we are very successful of it and have been over the years. Of course. But I think in 2026, a silver medal at a world championships in the sport of curling is something you should be extremely proud of. They were 10-2 in the round robin. They battled illness. That team, we're not going down that road, but they've been through so much.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they won the friggin' Scotties. They came second in the world when it counted. I personally think it's quite ignorant to say that it's any kind of a failure. But at the same time, I bet you Kerri wanted that gold more than anything. So she's probably pissed off at herself a little bit, obviously, or disappointed. But I think in my opinion, this is my opinion only, it's not that they couldn't get it done. They came second in a field of world-class teams and played pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah.
You?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the fans will say this was a golden opportunity because Hasselborg and Tirinzoni weren't there. I also heard people say, well, and Homan wasn't there. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, Homan and Einarson can't be at the Worlds at the same time. So, yeah, okay. Yes, Homan also wasn't there. But to that, I would say, you know, Anna Hasselborg, all due respect, 2-time Olympic gold medalist, great player, has never won the world championships and actually hasn't medaled at the world championships since, guess what? You know what? For you listening on the radio, I'll let you decide. Think in your mind, when do you think the last time Anna Hasselborg medaled at a Worlds was? 2019. So she hasn't medaled at a Worlds in 7 years. In theory, you know, Isabella Vrano winning bronze had a better run at the Worlds than Anna did. And even similar in the Euros, like Anna hasn't had a ton of success. I mean, she won the Euros this year, but hadn't won the Euros since 2019. So, you know, very similarly, and again, Olympic champion, great team, 2-time, like great team. I'm not saying that Anna in the field doesn't make it a tougher field than Isabella being there. I do think Anna's team is better than Isabella's team right now. So yes, I get that argument, but Tirinzoni lost to Schwaller. This wasn't, it's an Olympic year, we'll send Schwaller instead of Tirinzoni. No, they played at the Swiss Nationals in a best-of-3 final, and Xenia beat them. And then you also had 5 of the Olympic teams were also in the field. So this idea that this was like, oh, this was just a horrible Worlds and Kerri should have won because of that, I don't buy that all the way. Like, I'm not as aggressive as some of the people I've seen online. However, did this represent maybe a better chance to win the Worlds than when Kerri got those bronzes before and Tirinzoni was in the middle of that like 36-game winning streak? Maybe. Yeah. I'm willing to accept that for sure. But, you know, Schwaller and Einarson are separated by 0.7 ranking points on the World Curling Tour rankings. Kerri is 0.7 points ahead of Xenia, which I assume she'll fall because they'll get the points from the World Championships now. So, yeah, I think it was a good result. I do think it was maybe her best chance of winning gold, but I agree with you. I think anytime you're winning silver at a World Championships these days, it's a moment worth celebrating for sure. And I think when the dust settles, they'll be able to look back and appreciate it. And again, you said this earlier, but like they didn't lose it. Xenia won it. Like they were the best team all week. And so I think if they go into that final, they kind of play like shit. Xenia beats them and it feels like an upset. Okay, fine. But Schwaller was the best team there this week. That's just the fact of the matter.
And to add to what you said, I think a lot of it is, you know, when people say things like, well, it's a weaker, I'll just use the term weaker field because that's what I've been reading a lot. And I don't like, I just, when I say that they're nuts, it's because to me, it's more of a name recognition thing.
Yes.
Like to me, the focus is more on, and I'll just use Switzerland as an example. Tirinzoni's not there, but they just, like you said, Xenia's 23, so they don't know Xenia Schwaller.
Yeah,
like they do. I'm not going to guess how old anyone else is, but like
Silvana's 46, I believe.
And my point is, they're just not used to hearing those names. But what they also don't know is that 46. These teams like Vrano, Schwaller, they can friggin' play. So I'm echoing everything you said, where I think that thought process is more because they don't recognize the name on the jersey as opposed to how familiar they are with those teams in terms of skill.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. And like I said, 5 of the Olympic teams were there. So what more do you want, you know? There's no doubt in my mind that they got China's best team, Denmark's best team, Italy's best team.
Yep.
You know, and Japan wasn't Yoshimura, but I think a lot of people would say Fujisawa is better than Yoshimura, better than the Olympic representative. So, you know, to me, again, you're getting South Korea's best team. You know, you got a little lucky, or lucky's not the right word, but like Tab Peterson maybe not being there for the United States, Rebecca Morrison for Scotland. But again, those aren't teams that you're necessarily thinking are going to win the Worlds anyway. So yeah, I thought that the relative strength of the field was fine. And I agree with you. I get that the names you're used to seeing at the top were maybe not there, but it was a very strong field. Okay, quick words on anyone else in the field. I just wanted to, briefly shout out Team Vrano. They've been banging their head against the wall in Sweden for the last number of years. Finally, they earned their spot at Women's Worlds. Again, that was a points race. So yes, they were selected by Swedish curling, but I think fans sort of were thinking it was like a Homan situation or something where Anna wasn't allowed to play in the Worlds. That was not the case at all. Vrano actually had a better tour season than Anna did. So, that before Anna won the Olympic gold medal, that's when they did the selecting, was in January. So they earned their spot and won a bronze. And I was super happy for them. You could see how much it meant to them winning that bronze medal game. They played super, super well against Korea in that game. Fully deserved it. And then I also wanted to shout out Turkey.
That was mine.
Yeah, they've been well, go ahead. Talk to me about Dilsat Yildiz.
You tell me. No, I was just what were they? 7-5?
Yes, they were 7-5.
7-5. Found their way.
They were 5-5 and then won their last 2 games to secure themselves a playoff spot.
Yeah, and Turkey, they made noise a couple years ago. Was it in Sydney, I think, when Homan was there, Cape Breton?
Yeah, they beat Homan, I believe, was the
right.
But they've never made the playoffs. But yes, they've been close. Their best finish previous to this was 8th, and top 6 make the playoffs. So
well, and I think my point is you go up to anyone at my Tuesday night league tonight after the 8:30 draw, and I say, how about Turkey for curling? And it's going to be an interesting look, I get. So, and I think it all ties into our changing of the guard kind of discussion we've been having since we come on the air here about how there's just a lot of new teams and new countries entering the scene. I'm also suffering from a man cold, so I apologize, John.
Hey, no problem.
Scratching.
House of Hearts will do that to you.
We're gonna blame the cold.
Yeah.
But that's pretty, like, seeing another country like Turkey find their way into the playoffs. They didn't get to the podium, obviously, but still, I think they finished 6th. That's pretty impressive. Always nice to see another developing country like in the curling world coming up and finding their way. And, that's usually a good trajectory to be on. So big congratulations to them. The only team that I was kind of, I want to say disappointed in personally, but just I thought they would have done better was Constantini.
The
struggle bus,
the Olympics thing really and they haven't been good all season. They've really had a hard season. I'm going to be curious to see what happens there.
Me too. But again, great players individually. It's just like they just couldn't kind of put it together. And you're right, all season. Now that I think about it, like all year. Yeah,
fell out of the slams. They had a really tough year this year for sure. Just to your point about Turkey, just wanted to add one more thing that I thought was really cool. Dilsat's been at this. She made her first European championship in 2013 at 16 years old. She's 29 now. Her third, Osner Palat, is 36. So it was sort of like she was the really good Turkey player, and then Dilsat kind of came up and they joined forces. And then this year, their front end was 2 young players, Ijlal Karaman and Berfin Sengel, who are both 23. And I just think that, to me, is what's really cool, because we've seen over the years, there's been these kind of flash in the pan countries, right, where they have one good group of 4, and then they and then we don't, once those 4 or a couple of them retire, we never see them again. You know, France is one that immediately springs to mind. Obviously, Australia on the men's side was in the men's worlds a number of years in a row, and then Hugh Milliken retired, and then we never saw them again, kind of thing. And so what I really loved about it was Turkey, and I'm sure inspired by Dilsat, has this new kind of generation of curlers coming up who probably idolized Dilsat and Osner to an extent, and now they're getting to play with them. And I thought that was really cool to see.
Yeah, and I think what excites me about that is if that's, if we've already seen that happen in a country like Turkey, as a Canadian curling fan, who knows where else in the world that's happening right now. And We're going to see somebody break their way into the main field of the Worlds. A few years after that, make a little bit of a push at the playoffs and so on. So I think it's safe to say, and I know we hear this all the time on curling podcasts, but the game seems to be in a pretty good place around the globe right now. And the Worlds are always fun to watch. I know there's something special about the Brier and the Scotties, but the Worlds, maybe it's the Canadian side of it that, whether it's the men's or women's that are in Canada, but you get that atmosphere where everyone, or most of the crowd, I should say, is cheering for the home team, the one team. Just adds a little bit of something as opposed to, a sold out barn where, 10% is cheering for, there's a lot of people visiting with different colored jerseys on.
Yeah.
More of a sports feel.
Yeah, no, it was, and for sure, I was at the final, I was in the building, and it was electric. Like, people were really pulling for Kerri, but again, typical curling crowds, not cheering against Xenia.
No.
They were just really dialed into wanting Kerri to succeed. And it was the atmosphere was fantastic. It was a really great week. All right, well, let's go from some teams having success to some teams breaking up. It's been that kind of year. Obviously, it's the end of a quad, so we see a lot of team changes, and you and I haven't been together for a couple weeks, and so a lot of things have happened. The our faithful reporter extraordinaire Johnny Brazo has been updating the Grand Slam of Curling team tracker, and he's been a very, very busy man. If you haven't checked that out, it's at theGrandSlamOfCurling.com. It's being updated. It's like to the minute, basically. Once we hear news from a team, they get added to the team tracker, so it's all in one place. We're not going to talk about every team because obviously there's a lot going on, but we're going to spend a couple minutes talking about quite a few of the team changes. And we're going to start with maybe one of the ones that was kind of early on in this sort of news cycle since you and I recorded 2 weeks ago, but maybe some surprising news. But Colton Flash and the Marsh twins giving Mike McEwen his walking papers and bringing on Tyler Tardy, returning to the skip position. Your thoughts on the brand new team Tardy out of Saskatchewan?
Well, I'm happy to see Tardy skipping. I mean, you grew up in BC, or you lived in, sorry, I shouldn't say grew up, but you lived in BC for a number of years when Tyler was kind of coming up through the juniors.
Yeah, I met him when he was 13. I think I played against him for the first time when he was 13 and his brother was 15.
Right.
So I've known him forever, yeah.
I didn't know him forever. I randomly went to coach at the juniors, I forget which year, and it was in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. And, I had heard the boys, Tyler Smith and the boys on their way out kept saying, "Oh, Tardy's tough, Tardy stuff." And I said, who is Tardy? I've seen his name on Curling Zone and stuff, but I've never seen him play. And then I watched a couple of his games that week. And boy, he's a player. He's a shooter. We've already known that now. He's been around in men's, but I just have this kind of gut feeling that he's one of those guys that truly in his heart is a skip.
Yes.
I mean, you see his videos on Instagram and, talking strategy and stuff. And I think we've seen a great version of Tyler Tardy already, but I think we're going to see now another level of Tyler Tardy when he's setting up the whole end to throw his last two shots that he wants to throw. He's putting the broom down for himself and he's going down. I think he's going to bring it to another level. I really do. And Flash and the Marsh brothers, obviously recognizing that. And, I don't want to say Tyler's super young anymore. That's not really the case, but he's not as experienced skipping at this level on the men's side. I think it's pretty safe to say that. We can all agree.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yep.
So good on them for taking a chance. I remember because I grew up playing juniors with Brett Gallant in PEI, and they won the nationals. And seeing Brett as a skip, it was always just kind of like when are we going to see Brett skip his own team? Because he was such a dominant skip in our world down here. And, obviously started playing front end and kind of made the choice that he loved it and made the decision to turn into what he is now. And that's probably the best second in the world, if not top 3 sort of thing. But now seeing Tyler kind of break out of that this early in his men's career, I think it could be the start of something big. And I think this team has the potential to turn some heads. I like the personalities on this team too.
Yeah.
Colton, who's kind of the spark, I don't want to say the enforcer, but sort of the, you know what I mean? The muscle.
Yeah.
The Marsh brothers, who, if you don't get along with the Marsh brothers, you're the problem. And they show up on time, work their ass off, and make a lot of shots. And Tyler, who's, was passed the baton by this team to get into the house and take over a team, and a lot of motivation there, I would say. And Tyler's going to put the work in. So again, we'll have to wait and see on the ice, but I thought it was a good move. You?
Yeah, definitely. I think, I talked to Tyler a couple months ago when pieces were starting to be talked about moving, back in January or whatever. And it was just obviously preliminary discussions, of course. No one really knew exactly how things would shake out at that time. And he kind of told me, I think I just want to go back to skipping. It's where I feel the most comfortable. And so, yeah, he's definitely excited about that change, which I think bodes well for the team. And I also think there's sort of the looming Brad Jacobs of it all, right? I think we're sort of expecting that this might be Mark and Ben's last season, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But yeah, he obviously has a great relationship with Brad Jacobs. So I do just wonder as well if he's thinking like, well, this is an opportunity for me to try skipping, and maybe I'm not a skip in the men's game. As you said, Robbie hasn't skipped for 4 years in the men's game. So maybe we find out this year that he's not really cut out for it anymore. He is more of a third or a second. And then he goes and plays that position with Brad Jacobs. Now, I'm not saying that's by any means a done deal. That's not me reporting. I'm just, you can tell the relationship there is very good. So, that's kind of how I'm looking at that. But yeah, fun team. They'll have an opportunity to represent Saskatchewan at Brier 100 in Saskatoon next year, which I think will be great for them. Speaking of, awesome. Yeah, that'll be awesome. And speaking of Saskatchewan, Mike McEwen then almost immediately joins up with the rest of Team Kleider. We had gotten the news that Matt Hall was leaving the team. He wants to maybe still curl, but not as competitively. I will say, I'm going to give Matt Hall some credit here because his sort of press release or whatever you want to call it about him stepping back mentioned that he just sort of realized, like, I don't have the same desire that the rest of my teammates do. And Matt's a really good player, and I do think the relationship with those Kleider guys was good. And I was working under the impression that there was a good chance that team was going to stay together. And so for him to say, you know what, I don't want to go as hard as they want to go, I think was really cool and really good to see. But yeah, so Mike McEwen stepping in with Ryland Kleider's squad, and I'll just say right off the bat, love the move. I mean, you want to talk about a personality mix. I think Mike and those guys, very, very good. And Mike likes to be a leader. That's like a thing with Mike. He really thrives on imparting wisdom and being the guy that leads the team. I think he's going to get that with 3 relatively young guys. I think we saw this year, maybe Ryland himself is not quite ready to skip at the men's level. And that, of course, great player. I'm not saying he's not, but they've really struggled at the slams. They didn't have a great Olympic trials either. And so he's skipped his whole life. And I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what he can do at the third position. It just feels like maybe it'll take a little bit of the pressure off of his shoulders. He'll have Mike kind of guiding him. Makes me wonder if we're really going to see an improved Ryland Kleider next year.
100%. And it's funny you mentioned the word personality, because that's what I love about this matchup. Like, I think we're going to say pretty much the same thing, because I find Mike is a guy who, basically what you said, he likes to be the leader. He likes to be the skip. He wants to make the call, and that's good. You need that in a skip.
Mm-hmm.
But I also find that Mike, when he gets mopey, when he gets upset and he gets down on himself, the wheels can fall off pretty quick.
Yeah.
I like the way that Kleider's personality would slide into that back end with Mike.
Nothing bothers Ryland if you've ever been around him. Nicest guy on earth.
Right. That's what I was going to say. He's a polite, fun, nice. He's Saskatchewan. He's just, he's a good dude.
Yeah.
And like you said, he's a hell of a curler, but it's different world in men's. And like trying to get there at his age, what's Ryland,
26, 27, somewhere in there. Yeah.
So I think this will help him get experience.
27. He's 27.
Yeah. And I think Ryland specifically, he knows what a skip needs to be at their best. I think he'll put the work in to really figure out what Mike needs individually, and he'll work his ass off to do that. So I think Mike needs a kind of guy, a little like, don't worry, go get him, positivity, like let's keep the energy high here. And if we want to be at our best, and I think he'll get that in Ryland, and good on Ryland for stepping down too. Like taking them, I don't want to say the back seat. He's playing third with, a great team, but that takes a lot out of any athlete, no matter how old you are. And if you want it so bad, and no, I'm not going to give up my spot. I only have so many years to try and, win a Worlds or a Trials or an Olympics or whatever, as in their position to skip in his situation. So good on him. I just really like that back end. I think you're going to see Mike get more out of, we've yet to see out of Ryland since he started playing men's. And I think we're going to see Ryland get more out of Mike than we've seen in years.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. And the next big change, which I maybe might have revealed on the last podcast we did without actually saying it. But I mean, I was pretty sure that this was the team about a month ago. Brendan Botcher joining up with the Horgan brothers, Jake and Tanner, and rounding out the squad is Jeff Walker. We've been hearing, hasn't been 100% confirmed, but hearing that Jake is moving to Edmonton. People were wondering about residency requirements and all that kind of thing. Jake and Tanner live in Mississauga, I believe, right now. But yeah, the rumor is, again, not 100% confirmed, but the prevailing wisdom is that Jake's going to be moving to Edmonton. Obviously, Brendan and Jeff already live there. Tanner will be their import. Your thoughts when you heard that squad confirmed, Robbie?
I think this team has the potential to be very good. Excuse me. But I think we might see them a little bit slow out of the gate. And this is just strict personal opinion.
Yeah, of course.
Brendan hasn't skipped in a few years. It was a big quadrennial for him, just personally, like getting, when he parted ways with his first team, with Jacob's new team, making the move to Gushu, which is like a different world in curling. Like, you kind of go, and most teams, if they're walking through an airport, no one's really going to notice them. But if you walk through with Brad Gushu, you're going to be kind of probably stopped everywhere and that sort of thing. And you're playing a new position. You've kind of changed that position around a little bit, where you started out sweeping and then you ended up in the house. I think it might just naturally take him a little bit to settle back into that skip position. You mentioned, did you say it was Tanner moving to Edmonton?
Jake, I believe.
Jake moving to Edmonton. So that's a big choice. That's going to take some time to just sort of, my point of all this, and I mean, Jeff Walker's Jeff Walker. He's an anchor. He's just rock solid. But I think that if we don't see them have an outstanding year next year, don't push the panic button. I think there's a lot of talent. In my opinion, Brendan, when he was playing, he was just straight up my opinion, one of the best skips in the game.
Oh, I mean, he was number 3 in the world for sure. I mean, yeah.
Right.
Almost impossible to argue. I mean, he's won a Brier, he's won multiple slams as a skip. Like, I think obviously, didn't have maybe the last couple of years he wanted to, playing second for Brad Gushu. It just didn't seem like the right position for him. Like, he's a skip. Yep. I mean, that's the reality. Some people are just born to be skips. But I think you're right in that the casual fan, when this team was announced, you heard quite a bit of, oh, Brendan is no good, and you know, he can't skip or exactly. Or whatever. And it's just like how soon we forget, you know, 2 years ago, he came third at the Brier. He won 2 slams in that one season. So yeah, I that's bullshit is a great way to put it. Brendan's a great skip. I think of Jake as one of the most underrated players on tour. I think he's really come into his own the last couple of years with John Epping. And I think Epping just didn't find his way into finals and stuff like that, where maybe the more casual fan would watch and would see, but really, really a great player. And I like the mix. I like the mix personality wise too. I mean, Brendan's similar to Mike. He's a guy that he likes to run his own show. You know, he wants to be in control. And I think he's going to get, he's going to get 2 willing pupils in Jake and Tanner, for lack of a better way of putting it. And obviously, Tanner's my Grand Slam of karaoke partners. So, Tanner and we're champs, man. I texted Tanner to congratulate him on the new team move, and he said, "Don't worry, you're still my karaoke partner." So, that's really what's the most important thing in all of this. But
we'll talk about it later, but we were talking about that performance in Minnesota, actually.
Oh, really?
Rave reviews.
Wow.
Well, no, and I agree.
So
and
much.
One thing I just want to add is Epping kind of found their way out of the slams a few years ago, made their way back. I feel like out of a lot of the names on these lists, the Horgan brothers are 2 that I haven't seen quite as much. Like, sure, I've seen lots of their games, but I haven't really sat and watched them, for a week at the Worlds or followed them at a slam too closely. So I'm going on a lot of he say, she say, but from what I'm hearing and what I've seen personally already, 2 great curlers who I think will complement Botcher well. And the other thing too, you nailed it on the head where, people losing faith in Brendan Botcher's ability to skip, but I couldn't agree more with you that he's a guy who likes to be in control. And he went to play with 3 big personalities.
Yeah. Well,
you're just
talk
not
about a guy
control.
who likes to be in control. Brad Gushue is at the top of that list.
Yeah, but even before that, I mean, with Ben and Mark and Brett.
Yeah, totally.
They've been around the block. They're gonna not let people just control them with everything. So not to say that Brendan's gonna, plan their
this is not, we're not being critical.
No,
there are some skips who really rely on their teammates. Like they like input from their teammates, and that's what makes them the best skip, the best version of themselves. And there are other skips where they want to be the clear leader on the team that's kind of, controlling a lot of the decision making, and that's what makes them the best skip. And this is not negative things that we're talking about here.
No, exactly. It's just a personality thing, and I think the other players on their team will embrace that. Let Brendan be Brendan, and they'll be extremely strong.
Agreed. And speaking of Ben, Mark, and Brett, Team Jacobs announcing that they are staying together. They had kind of hinted at it during the Brier. We don't have to spend too much time talking about this, but Ben and Mark going for at least one more go around. And I talked about this with you, Robbie, when we did the episode a couple weeks ago. But I really think the key factor here is the slam schedule. At all 5 slams being from October to December, it allows them to basically only play those 5 events. They'll get a couple months off if Ben and Mark decide they don't want to play Rock League, which they're sort of indicating maybe they wouldn't want to. So then they'd get another couple months off. Then they play the Brier, and then they can decide from there how long they're going to keep playing. I thought it was interesting. Brad was on a TSN show with Luke Wilson, and it was like a 35-minute kind of video podcast, whatever. And Brad kind of said, we're taking it at a year-by-year basis. And it kind of sounded like he was thinking maybe I'm going to be able to convince Mark and Ben to go longer than one more year. But in any case, the Olympic gold medalists staying together for at least one victory lap, which I think not a lot of us are surprised by.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say. Look at them at the Olympics.
Yeah.
Now it's number one in the world, but exactly. Like why? If I was on that team, I wouldn't want to break up. I'll tell you that.
No.
I think Brad, we talked about this on the drive from Duluth to Minneapolis the other day, but Brad is just like, he was the Terminator at the Olympics. I've never seen a curler dialed in like he was at the Olympics. and fasting for 100 hours before the Olympics, and with 4 workouts and 4 saunas or whatever it was.
Yeah. And don't look into the science of any of that.
No, I'm not. Do I look like I'm looking into any of those science? But no, like Brad, I mean, I have no idea how old Brad is. 40, I'm
40,
assuming.
Same age as me.
He's at the best he's ever been right now.
Yep.
Like he's the classic example of, if I walked out and he was standing across from me and I'm going to shake his hand to say good game, I'm saying good game with my mouth, but in my brain I'm saying, oh shit. So not surprised. Good decision. See what happens.
Yep. And then we've got Team Cooey. We know obviously Tyler Tardy leaving for Flash in the Marshes left an open opportunity there. Johnson Tao joining that squad, one of the better young players in the country, in Alberta, certainly. Maybe a little surprised that Aaron and Karik signed on for another go-round, because hasn't always been the easiest quad for Team Cooey. We've seen them in and out of the slams. We've seen them have varying levels of success at the provincial level. But, Robbie, it's amazing what one phenomenal Brier can do for a team. Seems like Aaron and Karik both pretty motivated, so they add Johnson Tao. And then we're getting the new look Team Epping, as we know, Jake and Tanner Horgan leaving for Brendan Botcher, Ian McMillan staying, and they're going to be playing out of Manitoba, adding BJ Neufeld and Ryan Weeb. Some brief thoughts on the new Team Epping, Robbie.
Well, I ran into Ian on the way home. I think it was from Steinbach.
Yeah.
He was connecting in Toronto, and I was walking just to my gate, and he did not have a very happy look on his face. They had just lost the provincials to Sandy. And I was just thinking back to when I only played a few years really competitive, but I just remember how pissed off and upset I would get over, big losses for PM. But, I just remember saying Ian's a good guy. I hope he stays with it. So I'm happy to see that him and Epping are still playing together, because those guys can still play. There's no reason why they wouldn't. I mean, obviously not talking family or anything like that, but both still very physically in great shape, love the game and playing well. I don't know Ryan Weeb.
Good shooter.
Yeah, I just, that's the problem, is I can't say too much about them, but it's nice to see BJ back too, because it was kind of like, he was on such a roll there for so many years and just kind of slipped out of the scene a little bit. So, and then we saw him sparing this season in, I believe it was Manitoba, Steinbach.
In Steinbach, he played with Mike McEwen's team. He was been playing with Reed Carruthers the last season and a half, but we didn't see Reed a ton.
I think too, players like Epping and BJ working together in a back end, they're going to have something to prove, and just, they know that time is probably not on their side.
Yep.
So great players, great guys.
And it's not going to be easy in Manitoba either. They got Jordan McDonald, who announced they're staying together there. Braden Calvert, the Manitoba champion this year, who had a nice run to the Brier playoffs, is there. So Manitoba is going to be very competitive. And I'll say this, I'll put my curling insider hat on for a second. I do believe if BJ wanted it, he could have had that Team Cooey spot. So I think that BJ was kind of deciding between Kevin Cooey and John Epping. Obviously, he's played with Kevin before and maybe wanted a bit of a newer experience. But I know, I like I said, I talked to John quite a bit this week, just with him being in Calgary with Team Schwaller. And he said that, he was really looking forward to the mix once he knew that BJ was interested. I think it was a full court press kind of situation. I think that was the one guy that John kind of wanted more than anyone else that was available. And he got him. So I think that's a nice mix. We got a few of the women's teams making moves, and it's weird, Robbie. I mean, we said this on the last podcast. We'll reiterate it again. And by the time you listen to this episode, things may have already changed a great deal, but everybody's waiting for Kerri Einarson.
I know.
Trying to see, are they going to be dropping a player? I have a hard time imagining Team Einarson is going to fully break up, because obviously they have to return 3 members of the team in order to keep their berth back to the Scotties next year as Team Canada. So I have a very hard time imagining that they're just going to blow it up and go their separate ways. We don't generally see that happen. it does kind of seem like the other teams are waiting to see, well, who's that piece that shakes loose? If Val Sweeting is out on Team Einarson, will that be, a piece that other teams are really wanting? And then once Val picks a team, if she keeps playing, and if it's Val, that's obviously speculation, but then it'll be a domino effect. So everybody's still waiting for Kerri, but probably the biggest news, Team Skurlick broke up. We're going to see where those players end up. I know that, I've heard Kayla and Margot's name out there as far as, talking to people and maybe looking to find teams. But perhaps one of the more shocking moves, Serena Gray Withers announcing that they're parting ways with Lindsay Burgess, a great young team. They were all living in Edmonton. Lindsay had moved from the East Coast to live in Edmonton and play with that team in the last couple of years. They haven't announced a replacement player yet, but Robbie, your thoughts on that move? Because I think everybody kind of thought they were staying together.
Well, I kind of thought they would too. And, it's a team I haven't seen a lot of. We haven't seen them in the tier 1 events, very often. If they were in a few slams though. I remember calling a few of their games this year in the tier 2.
In the tier 2, yeah.
But they're just not a team that I can sit here and tell you their, strengths and weaknesses and everything about them. But what surprised me was Lindsay, because Lindsay, I've known Lindsay since she was young, and she's got that work ethic and just a great personality. So I feel like it definitely wasn't based on that. It was based on something that they have an idea of who they want. That person might be available. I'm just straight up gossiping here. I have nothing to back this up scientifically, but my thought would be, someone, they live in Edmonton, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Probably someone in the Edmonton area.
Mm-hmm.
Who might not be able to travel very much, who's admitted that many times. So my mind goes to Laura Walker.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is just straight from my dad gut here, my gut feelings.
Yeah.
But I think would slide into that team very nicely, by the way.
I agree.
Gray Withers is good. Like
Very good. And I think, sorry.
No, I was just going to say they're a team like Reese Hansen in Canada where we don't hear about them all that much on kind of the main media networks, or, we just haven't seen them on that big stage. But when you see them play, they're going to be incredible. They're already incredible. They just haven't kind of got there yet.
Yeah.
And I think someone who has been there before could be a major factor in them making that step.
Well, Laura had a great Scotties too. Yeah, I'm operating under the idea that it's likely Laura. The only thing that would give me pause is Val also lives in Edmonton, so maybe that's a potential move there. But yeah, I think again, people, I said this last time, but people sometimes say to me, "Oh, you had insider knowledge and you knew this and that," and a lot of times it really is just like a simple logic problem. And like you said, like in this case, they're a great young team and they all live in the same city. So why would you fire a member of the team? Well, the only reason I think you would do that is to bring in a veteran, right? To bring in someone with that experience. I don't think you're dismissing Lindsay Burgess to bring in, someone from Mila Plett's team, for example. And not that they're not good players, but Lindsay's further along in her career and is probably a better player than someone you'd be bringing in from Mila Plett's team. So to me, it's a move you make for a veteran player. As you said, Laura herself, when she was on broadcast with us in Steinbach, said she would return to 4-person curling, but only for the right move. And she was also, kind of indicating that maybe geography was a factor for her. Obviously, you'd think, again, it would be for Gray Withers too, because like I say, you have all 4 players in the same city. You're probably not firing someone who lives in Edmonton to pick up someone who lives in Nova Scotia, right? Like you have geography working in your favor. So yeah, to me, Laura seems the most likely just because, we don't even know if Val is going to be available and they made the announcement a couple weeks ago. Like you'd think they're only getting rid of Lindsay because they know they have someone. But yeah, to me, those would be maybe the 2 major options. But yeah, I think you're probably, your dad gut is probably in the right place, Robbie, with that move. Okay, and then lastly, very lastly here, as we got to get going. Maybe part of the this kind of interesting thing is, or maybe the most interesting storyline in all of this is, we still don't know who's on Matt Dunstone's team next year.
Reigning Briar champion.
Yeah, we do know EJ Harnden is retiring. They will have a bye back to the Briar 100 in Saskatoon. You would think that second slot would be highly coveted, but it does appear that Matt Dunstone is having a hard time filling it. What do you make of that, Robbie?
I don't know what to make of that, but I'm just trying to think of names who would slide into that position naturally, a reigning, Briar champion.
Yeah.
In my mind, there's one kind of top tier player still out there who some people might be waiting for a retirement announcement, but we haven't heard one. If we haven't heard one by now, especially with all went on, it's got to be Mark Nichols. Is it not? I mean, sorry, not is it Mark Nichols, but that's where my mind just naturally goes before anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, so I'll say this. I know for sure that the spot was offered to Tyler Tardy and Colton Flash. And Tyler really wanted to go back to skipping. Mm-hmm. Him and Colton, I guess, had already talked or whatever the case, but I do believe the spot was offered to both Tyler and Colton and they said no. So that is interesting. That again, we're talking about, you got a chance to be on the defending Briar champions and you choose not to be. That is sort of interesting. I feel like we don't, we're not usually expecting that kind of thing. And then, yeah, your mind obviously wanders. I was wondering if one of the Kleider guys could have been a fit there. Josh Mattern, I think, is a great sweeper. Because I think that the challenge here, Robbie, is with EJ, he's one of the best sweepers in the world. Some would even tell you he's the single best sweeper in the world. And of course, he's a great shot maker. I think in a vacuum, can you replace EJ's shot making? Probably, or you can get close to that. But it's the combination of sweeping and shot making that you're not going to get from very many players on tour. So I think Josh Mattern offered some of that. Again, hasn't been in the sort of huge games, but I think has shown great sweeper, can make the shots. So I kind of thought maybe he was in the mix. Obviously, they were looking at Jake Horgan. They brought him as their alternate to the Briar. Clearly, that didn't end up being an option for them either. So, yeah, you're right in that I think Mark Nichols, certainly shot-making wise, is going to be equal or maybe even slightly better than EJ. He's been one of the best players in the history of the game, quite frankly. But he's getting older. And I think it's fair. He's a good sweeper, but fair to say that EJ is a better sweeper than Mark Nichols at this stage. And then if it's not Mark Nichols, then you're probably looking at almost like an inside Manitoba option, like a Kyle Deering from Reed Carruthers' team, someone like that. And then you're losing a lot with the sweeping with Kyle, smaller guy and has been, played back end a lot of his career too. So it's really interesting. Like if it's not Mark Nichols, then
well, that's literally how I came to that.
Yeah.
Like it's not that, Mark would be the guy. It's right now, based on who's already committed and who's not, like, that's why I think it came out that way. It has to be Mark. Does it not?
Yeah.
But who knows? Mark might be still thinking about what he's going to do next year. I think he would slide nicely into that team because I'll tell you what Mark will bring. That EJ head is Mark's a great team guy.
Yeah.
And he's very adaptable to any situation. He's seen everything. But I talked to him this last summer. He was in PEI with his kids were at a hockey camp and we're just talking in the fall about the trip or whatever. And he was just telling me about how, he's in a season of life where his kids are now playing pretty high level sports and he's busy. So who knows, maybe he's looking to get out, but for someone like Mark Nichols, as good as he is, as much as, he's been around for so many years, if he gets the chance to walk on, even for a year, who knows? Maybe it's not a 4-year commitment, but at least 1 year to go back to the Briar as Team Canada. I'd just have a hard time being convinced that he would turn that down.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think if he's playing, that's going to be definitely the best option available to him. So we'll just see. Yeah, we'll see what ends up what ends up there. But Kyle Deering may be a name in the mix. Joel Kratz might also be a name in the mix. Had a good Brier for Team Grattan and left Team Grattan. So I'm just spitballing. I think obviously Mark Nichols is the best option available, but you wonder if they just might have to poke around for a sort of under the radar name if indeed it's not Mark Nichols. So is it Robbie
John,
Doherty?
Perfect time for an announcement. I'll be leaving my club team next year.
Matt did joke with me a few weeks ago that it might be me. So I mean, if it's you or me, they've got a lot more problems than we thought they did. I'll tell you that for free.
Texted Matt after the Brier final, John. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but congratulations, brother. Well deserved. Blah, blah, blah. Next column. Would love to offer my services on the squad for Worlds, but I've got the PEI Club Provincials that week. We're Cornwall #1. Anyways, good luck.
Well, my calendar's wide open. So Matt, if you're listening, I'd be interested.
Herndon messaged me about you and I doing it.
Yes, Ryan Herndon did also message me about you and me having a wrestling match for the spot.
Bring it. Ryan McMahon there, the promoter, trying to book.
Yeah, I know. Well, I told Ryan I'd rather just have a curling game against you. I was like, aren't we competing for a curling spot? He's like, nah, wrestling.
Unless we're on chess.com, you're probably gonna beat me in any way.
Well, there you have it. Obviously, by the time this podcast comes out, a lot more team change news may have dropped, and we'll hopefully be able to chat with you a little bit about that. We have some more Rock League stuff coming down the pipe. We've got that second part of the GM interviews. I'm also going to be having Brent Lang and Nick Sulsky on to talk about some of the rule changes and some of the events that are going to be happening during Rock League week in Toronto. And Robbie and I might squeeze in a Rock League preview before everything gets underway in Toronto too, but we'll see how it all shakes out. In any event, lots to come on Broom Brothers. So thank you so much for joining us again. This episode brought to you by Goldline Curling. Check them out at goldlinecurling.com. End of season sale is on now through March 31st. If you want to see a video of this episode, it's available on our YouTube. It's just at Broom Brothers. Please like and subscribe. You can also find us on any of your social medias of choice. Just look up the Broom Brothers. You'll find us there. Thank you so much for listening. As always, we do love and appreciate you, and we will see you back here very, very soon. Goodbye.
Peace.